This is my podcast about democracy for Russia. Like many people, I've been following the war in Ukraine. It's not much of a war, it's an invasion by a big military power, very irrational. But that's what dictators do. A dictator needs that external enemy, that outward military misadventure to stay in power at home, and that is how I read the situation. Except that the death and destruction in Ukraine is just mind blowing. There's so much damage that has been done. So many people who have been killed. The number of refugees, basically half of Ukraine has emptied out. It's a tragic situation, and the military response on the ground. The brave men and women of the Ukrainian military who have stepped up and they are making the ultimate sacrifice on a daily basis. All that is there. The economic sanctions and the you know very many governments, the US and other Western European countries that have stepped in, and all that is commendable. But I have felt from day one, as I feel today, the best way to conclude this war would be for the Russian diaspora to take the lead, rally around your Nelson Mandela figurehood, which would be Navalny, who is unfairly in jail, to rally around that person. The end step would be where, like, say, a million people in Moscow come out into the streets and demand that Putin leave the scene, and then there's an interim government in Navalny's leadership. That's the roadmap. I think that has to be the primary focus. And my podcast is dedicated to that cause. I've done this before. I was in 2005, and curiously, in 2005, my native country, Nepal, where I grew up. I was born in India. I grew up in Nepal. I went to high school in Kathmandu. And in 2005, this was completely unplanned. But the king of Nepal pulled a coup and took over, and suddenly we had a dictatorship. You could argue we had a dysfunctional democracy before that, as we do now, very corrupt, not delivering, but still, that is, I would, I will take a dysfunctional democracy over a dictatorship any day. And in 2005, there were an estimated 200,000 Nepalese across the US, but I was the only full timer to work for democracy among that crowd. And the 2004 Orange Revolution of Ukraine was my inspiration. So I'm just trying to give back. And this podcast is dedicated to that.